The Qing Dynasty. The Qing Dynasty began as a strong, organized rule over China, uniting diverse cultures and bringing prosperity. But corruption, natural disasters, and population growth strained resources. Western imperial powers exploited this weakness through the Opium Wars and unequal treaties. Internal uprisings like the Taiping and Boxer rebellions tore the country apart. Finally, the 1911 revolution ended over 2,000 years of imperial rule. In 1912, the last emperor, Puyi, abdicated, closing the book on China's dynastic age and opening the path to modern republicanism. The French Colonial Empire. France's global empire spanned Africa, Asia, and the Americas, but the cost of 2 world wars shattered its economic and military power. After 1945, anti-colonial revolts erupted, beginning with Vietnam's struggle for independence, followed by Algeria's bloody war. Domestic unrest and global pressure forced France to abandon imperial ambitions. By the 1980s, nearly all colonies were free. The French Empire's collapse showed that even great powers cannot rule forever, and that liberty, once sparked, can dismantle centuries of control. The Byzantine Empire. The Byzantine Empire, born from the eastern half of Rome, stood as a fortress of Christianity and trade for over 1,000 years. Yet centuries of civil wars, corruption, and constant invasions drained its strength. The Crusaders' sack of Constantinople in 1204 was a devastating blow it never fully recovered from. By the 15th century, the Ottomans surrounded its capital. In 1453, Sultan Mehmed II's cannons breached the walls, and Emperor Constantine XI fell in battle. The ancient empire's fall marked the end of the Roman world, and the dawn of a new Ottoman age. The Spanish Empire. Spain's empire began with Columbus's voyages and stretched across the Americas, Asia, and Africa. But immense wealth from colonies brought corruption and endless wars. The empire failed to modernize as Britain and France grew stronger. Uprisings in Latin America and economic collapse in Europe weakened it further. The Spanish-American War in 1898 ended its final colonies, Cuba, Puerto Rico, and the Philippines. The once dominant global empire that ruled the seas had vanished, leaving behind a legacy of language, faith, and culture that still shapes continents today. The Persian Empire. Founded by Cyrus the Great, Persia was the first global superpower, ruling lands from Egypt to India. But centuries of luxury, heavy taxation, and constant revolts weakened its core. When Alexander the Great invaded in 334 BC, Persian unity was gone. King Darius III's forces, though vast, were disorganized and poorly led. After decisive defeats at Issus and Gaugamela, Persia's fate was sealed. Darius was betrayed and killed by his own men. In 330 BC, Alexander entered Persepolis, burning the royal city that once ruled the ancient world. The Soviet Union. Born from revolution, the USSR became a Cold War superpower. Yet decades of censorship, inefficiency, and political oppression drained its people. The costly arms race with the U.S. crippled its economy, while corruption spread through its leadership. Gorbachev's reforms, perestroika and glasnost, backfired, unleashing demands for freedom. One by one, Eastern European countries broke away. In 1991, after 69 turbulent years, the Soviet flag was lowered from the Kremlin. The world's largest communist empire had collapsed, not by invasion, but by its people's hunger for change. The British Empire. At its peak, the British Empire controlled nearly a quarter of the world's land and population. But global wars, rising independence movements, and the cost of maintaining faraway colonies weakened it. India's independence in 1947 began a wave of decolonization across Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean. The 1956 Suez Crisis revealed Britain's fading global power. By 1997, the handover of Hong Kong to China symbolized the final chapter. The empire that once claimed the sun never sets had transformed into the modern Commonwealth, a network of independent nations bound by history. The Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire ruled for over 600 years, stretching across 3 continents. But in the 19th century, corruption, military weakness, and growing nationalism fractured its power. European nations labeled it the sick man of Europe. During World War I, its alliance with Germany sealed its fate. Defeat led to occupation, revolt, and finally, revolution. In 1922, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk abolished the Sultanate, replacing centuries of Ottoman rule with the Republic of Turkey. The fall of the Ottomans marked the end of an Islamic superpower that once connected East and West. The Mongol Empire. Under Genghis Khan, the Mongols forged the largest land empire in history. But after his death, unity fell apart. His descendants divided the empire into khanates that soon fought each other. Corruption grew, trade routes collapsed, and the once feared Mongol military lost discipline. The Black Death devastated populations across Asia, further accelerating decline. By 1368, the Ming dynasty overthrew Mongol rule in China, ending the Yuan dynasty. What began as unstoppable conquest dissolved into fragmented states, leaving behind a legacy of trade, culture, and fear that shaped Eurasia for centuries. The Roman Empire. The Roman Empire didn't collapse overnight, it decayed slowly from within. Years of corruption, overexpansion, and constant wars drained its treasury. Political instability and civil wars weakened loyalty among generals and citizens alike. Barbarian invasions from the north exposed its military decline, while economic collapse shattered trade and agriculture. In 476 AD, the last emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was overthrown, marking the symbolic fall of Rome. The once mighty empire fragmented into smaller kingdoms, giving rise to medieval Europe, a reminder that even the strongest empires can crumble not by conquest, but by decay.